Hey guys, Ashish here from LifeSite. Thank you all for joining in for our first event of 2024, where we're going to navigate all about what's going on in the measurement world, how people are evolving themselves for better marketing effectiveness moving forward. I have with me Nicholas from Impression Digital, Alex from SmartSites, and Jeremy from AdQuadrant. Thank you all for joining in. Let's do a round of introduction. I'll start from the same order. Nicholas.
Perfect. And yeah, thanks for having me as well. I'm dialing in from Thailand at the moment, so it is 12 a.m. in the morning. Not my normal place of dialing in from, but it is what it is. So I'm a head of paid media at a company called Impression. We're based in the UK, but our background is mainly MarTech, so tying measurement and solution along with performance marketing across things like Meta, TikTok, and then your standard Google and search platforms as well. And that isn't just the paid media side of things, but it's also from an SEO and organic side of things. So measurement's quite a big topic for us at the moment from our point of view. And I'll pass over to whoever is next.
Alex.
Cool. I'm Alex Melen, co-founder of SmartSites. So SmartSites is a full-service digital agency. We focus mostly in the small business space. So we make websites, and then we do all types of digital marketing, SEO, pay-per-click, social media. We have 400 full-time employees, manage 100 million in ad spend for our clients per year.
Awesome. Jeremy.
Jeremy Fenderson, Senior Director of Client Partnerships here at AdQuadrant, 15 plus years experience in marketing. We grow direct-to-consumer businesses here at AdQuadrant via paid media, but also growth strategy. We really put the hats on when it comes to being an operator, thinking about profitability, what needs to happen next. So setting a solid foundation for growth and finding that profitability, but also innovating and scaling into what needs to happen next, which is a part of the conversation today. Pleasure to speak with you all.
Awesome. Okay, let's address the elephant in the room straight away. Google announced third-party cookie phase out pretty much from last 2 years, and we've seen in the middle we had iOS 14 coming in, starting a lot of issues in attribution. Then I think a lot of people have been gearing towards this from past 2 years, and we still see a lot of people are unprepared. So let's start from that note where Alex, what are you seeing, especially brands doing this? From how are they getting prepared for this? What do you think are some of the foundation layers which people are currently missing out on to kick off this transition?
Yeah, good question. So having everyone listening to everyone's introduction, I think I'm gonna wind up be representing the SMB side more so than the other speakers here, the small online businesses, right? Which is the core of our clients. From that side, I think one of the most important things is to actually assess the impact of what this is going to have, right? We have varying extremes, from some clients completely freaking out about it and the end of the world is coming, right? That kind of perspective. And some that just are completely out of it and don't even know what it is, right? Which I think is typical on the small business side. So I think, first of all, it's super important to assess your actual impact. How are you being impacted by it, right? Surprisingly, or maybe not surprisingly, a lot of businesses are really not being impacted as much as they think and fear and all the headlines tell them to, right? Your typical like roofer, plumber type of client, what's their real impact? So if they're doing search marketing, so SEO, pay-per-click, the impact's actually very limited. So if you think about it, the way search marketing works is it doesn't rely on the core search marketing, not display network and such, but core search marketing doesn't rely on third-party data, right? People self-identify themselves. Someone goes into Google and types, my basement's flooding, I need a plumber, right? So on that side of the world, the impact is not huge. But if we switch kind of to the other extreme, for clients in certain industries, it certainly could be very impactful, right? Data collection practices are now being brought to light. So you have to be compliant with GDPR, CCPA, all of the all of the different implications of collecting data, right? And as third-party data goes away and everyone focus on first-party data, it becomes super, super important for businesses to be compliant in how they're collecting it, right? And then the third piece I'm going to talk, and there's a lot to talk about here, but my third point, and then I'll pass it along to the rest of the group, is I think the third component of all of this is to really educate your teams, right? For companies that do have more than one employee, or probably most important for those that are, let's say, 20, 30, 40, 50 employees. I think it's super important to educate internally the team on what this means, right? Because you might have the perfect marketing strategy to get rid of third-party data and use first-party, and you know exactly the data you're collecting on your website and you're complying with this and complying with that. But if the people working with you don't know what's going on or what the rules are, what they should be doing, you could run into a lot of issues, right? You actually might be collecting third-party data and not even knowing, right? Because it's someone in your company is in charge of that, or you might be collecting data from your website, first-party data, but not be compliant with all the new rules. So I think it continues to be super, super important to educate everyone involved in your business on what the implications are for our company and how we're gonna pivot to cope with the changing world.
Awesome, thanks you. Jeremy or Nicholas, do you want to take the side of what's happening from the enterprise level companies, because they're going to deal with a much more larger problem, right? So we can start off with Nicholas.
Yeah, I think like Jeremy and I might have slightly differing thoughts and I suppose what we've seen on this. But from my side, being a lot more activation focused, we call it, Google's called it digital maturity for years now. Essentially, you have a digital maturity and measurement is part of it. But we're finding a lot of clients nowadays in the enterprise space starting to really care about this. In the UK, we had GDPR, and in Europe in particular, we had like a lot of like clauses and new regulation come in about 3-4 years ago now, I believe, from the top of my head, which means things like cookie consent was a big thing, like actual banners, like you could be fined for it. So we feel that from a UK and like Europe point of view, clients seem to be a bit more there and ready to adopt, but we've found with the US market, and this might be different because of the clients we work with, are a bit further behind in their journey to actually becoming a bit more, I suppose, digitally mature, which feels a bit disingenuous to say, but it's what I'm going to use for this. So yeah, we're finding that people seem to adopt a lot quicker within the UK and the US, sorry, the UK and the EU, but the US is taking a bit more stakeholder management and buy-in, especially because when it's enterprise, Jeremy, you'll probably know more about this than me, the stack that is needed is so much more expensive than that of an SMB, because an SMB, as I suppose Alex said, it's largely not as affected because there's less data to pass back and pass through. And I'll pass over to Jeremy, or I'm
going to jump in really quick. I really like that
Alex.
point, actually, because it's my company is very US centric, so I sometimes forget that some of the listeners to this, right, are not in the US, right, and all of this that we're discussing is not a US centric issue. But you're absolutely right. With the clients we have in the EU, having gone through all the hurdles of GDPR and all of that in prior years, are much more prepared and are ready for all of this than the ones in the US who were fortunate enough to not have to do any of it, right? They're like, GDPR is coming. If we don't have any visitors or business outside the US, could ignore all of it. We could collect all the cookies we want. We could sell our cookies. We don't have to do anything. And now for them, it's a much, much bigger jump than the EU folks who have already went through it. So very, very good point.
100%. I have to actually mirror exactly what you're saying. It's for us, it's been more of what are my current targets and my goals now? What sections and portions of my data and business could be impacted? Looking at overall historical performance and business growth, and then saying, what is my action plan? What am I going to do next? To your points, it isn't a rapid adoption, but more of a consideration and then an education of what should we do? What does that mean? What are the investments we need to take? And it also depends on the brand that we're working with, how ahead, or are they kind of holding it close to their chest in terms of what steps they're taking. So it is a case-by-case basis, starting with, well, what does this mean for me? And then what steps are we going to deploy in order to make sure we don't see an adverse effect on our business overall?
All right. Thanks, everyone, for kicking this off on a great note. So let us dive in, right? So with respect to cookies, everyone was relying on primarily tracking every sort of data possible, understanding where customers are doing what are they buying, right? And and a lot of people are spending ad dollars to primarily get people onto their doors. And then we obviously there's an issue of attribution caused by wrong attributions being given by all of the platforms. Uh, People are still trying to fit the dots with respect to where their sales came from, and this is the larger issue in play, especially with someone who's getting millions of people onto their doors and spending huge amount of dollars in. So with that amount of problem in scale, right? Advertisers primarily deal with one, hey, trying to understand whether we're getting the right data. Two, they have to answer, especially since you're spending, you need to also show all the effects of it, all the PPIs which is going to drive out of it, and this is becoming a little bit of a huge problem, right? So, Nicholas, let's start with how is this causing issues when it comes to really showcasing that ROI from marketing? Where are the gaps which is really which people are facing issues on? And how are you seeing people approach this problem right now? And even as you as an agency handling their accounts, this must be a thing proactively you guys are taking to make sure that they don't lose a lot of money, and you also pretty much win more media budgets from them.
Oh, good question. A very large question, and I could speak on this probably over an hour quite easily. So I'm going to break a few key points down. I think the first key point is I think we've always had a bit of a challenge with measuring and understanding the effectiveness of our media channels. I think that if we look at platforms in particular, even if I just take two, like I suppose, archetypal ones, if we look at Meta, Facebook and Instagram, their attribution compared to that of Google is vastly different. The way they measure is completely different. So as I like to call them, the almost walled gardens to an extent, where they don't want to share that data. They don't want to allow you to have unambiguous data. Like they will claim that their portion. So you get this massive crossover. So I don't think this is a new problem. This has been a forever problem, but now we've got the deprecation of cookies and other, I suppose, measurement effects. It's becoming more apparent. The biggest one here for me is getting people to start running things like incrementality testing of their actual channels. For anyone that's on this that doesn't really understand incrementality, I'll boil it down to a very easy understanding. It's essentially, there's multiple ways of doing it. The easiest one is doing like an artificial geotest. So you just pump some more money, or you change a metric, or you change a variable in a certain area and then measure the effect of that on pretty much the budget that you've had and the output that you achieve. So therefore, if you want to test Meta and see its effectiveness, you take a control, you then create a test for the Meta product, and then you would pump more money, or you change a variable, and then it would sort itself out. And that's how we're actually approaching this with clients. We work with mainly enterprise clients, but we do understand that it's quite a big step change to get people to change their attribution and to change from attribution to contribution, because I prefer to call this contribution now instead of attribution. And we find incrementality testing is the easiest way forward, and then move them on to something like an MMM or econometric style measurement platform. We've used multiple platforms in the past. We have our own internal one as well. And it's essentially what size fits the client and what do they need out of it as well. So that's how we're trying to use it. But then getting that back into platform, we share that through a conversion action. So we have the in-platform conversion action, and then we have our own econometric conversion action that we feed back in. And then essentially our teams, which are much smarter than I am, look at the latency effect from point of click to point of purchase, and then also look at the visible impression if it's programmatic as well, which I could talk about forever, but I'll pass over to the other guys that will have probably more opinions on this than me as well.
Sure. Jeremy?
100%. So we take a very, again, operator-focused approach. We really look at the bank account. Like, that's where we start, right? So like you said, the different platforms will have different ways of measuring things, different attribution. And when you stack them all together, they'll tell you have $20 million in revenue. When you look at your bank, you have 5, right? That was the initial crux of the problem when we work with our clients that we wanted to solve. So when we look at platforms, and again, this isn't a new issue, we look at them as signal, and the bank account is a source of truth, right? So we look at them as proxy metrics. So when we see each of the platforms, we want to make sure we maximize the signal going to a given platform, but then we back that out to say, based off a given period of time, also looking at historic data, how much revenue did we hit? And the other thing we look at is profitability, right? Whether it's contribution margin, whichever metric you want to look at there, we want to understand how much money the client is keeping at the end of the day based off all of their holistic strategies and tactics and investments they deploy. So we start first with the bank account, then we assess what does the platform have in terms of signal and how it understands what is happening to drive that performance. And we set up a bit of a proxy scenario where we could see a $20 CPA on Google and a $500 CPA on Meta. That's just what the platform understands. As we continue to invest in that direction, are we seeing growth or not? And we experiment our way into success. So our source of truth is always going to be the bank account for the client. And we also meet clients where they are. Some clients really want to look at, all right, what is my ROAS on this platform? To the other speaker's point, like, that's where they are. We'll meet them there. But we gradually want to start to move them towards how much revenue am I making? When we really get advanced, what are my COGS and what does that mean from a profit standpoint? And at that point, we start to look at how are we driving the growth of the business profitably? What signal does the platform need to see? And then what experiments and innovations can we add to our strategy to continue growth?
Wow. Okay. Crazy. Getting back to Nicholas, you pointed out that initially doing incrementality testing builds that foundation, because few of them, if you don't have that much amount of data, then you need to do testing so that you have first amount, that much amount of data. Now, when you have that much amount of data, right, you're pretty much either working with people sitting on that data, trying to figure out things, or but this again has a flaw, because in the end, data keeps coming in every day, right? In the end, the models need to adapt every day, and then pretty much, you know, when you're doing primarily reallocation of budgets or optimizing campaigns every day, you have to ensure that you have the right model in front of you, so that you plan your week, you plan all of that stuff accordingly. Now, this has been run very manually from a long period of time, right? Data scientists have been deployed. People have been doing this pretty much in a manual fashion. But now we're living in a different time. We have all the technology to integrate all the data. We have everything possible to make sure that it's given in real time, right? Especially the model. And what we are also seeing in when people are connecting our accounts is that what we need is a more question of predictability because of this model, right? Because yeah, I can take the model and spend money on my current campaigns and all that, but eventually what I'm looking for as a marketer is predictability, right? So Nicholas, do you think this is an important aspect which people are really not even looking at when it comes to media buying for the future, even as brands? When you're trying to win more media budgets, I'm sure this is one of the important things which you're pitching to your brand, saying that, hey, we have these scenarios planned out for you. These are some of the predictions. How are they really, responding to that? How confident are they being about it? What kind of questions are thrown at you during this point?
It's it's interesting. I think quite often the way that we've been looking at it, we look at essentially one of our models allows us to say predicted budget, so what we think their new budget should be, and then that's pocketed by channel. We generally have that as like, you know, a mid, medium, and max as sort of a prediction. And as we know, the more we spend, the less confidence we get within our model within itself of what it could achieve until we have more prior data. We use essentially Bayesian learning is our base of AI that we use for pretty much everything we do. But yeah, long story short, we generally test with a smaller budget to start with to show incrementality, and then we move them on to larger budgets. We find that clients, especially the EU and the UK, I'm not sure if you're aware of how bad the economy is in the UK at the moment. It's not looking particularly healthy. We're finding that people aren't wanting to spend as much. We find that people are wanting to have real good control over where their budget is being allocated. So we find smaller incremental changes to budget to then prove that it's actually the right thing and our model can be trusted is the way to do it. And then we build that up over time to then say, cool. And much like Jeremy said, it all relates back to the bottom line. So what is actually in their accounts? It's not looking in platform. It's looking at their incrementality of revenue overall as a business, because ultimately we can pocket that into an MMM, but sometimes we find traditionally they'll still look at GA4 and be like, cool, numbers are going up, our DAS data is going up. Media modeling.
me? Okay. Jeremy and Alex, how are you addressing the problem of predicting future sales from your for your clients?
So Alex, I'll let you go first on this one.
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
How are you really winning more media budgets this year? Because in the end, every year you either, let's say you have an X light and you want the back, you want to win more media budgets because that's how you get more money, right? And right now it's important for you to showcase that for your clients, and there's a lot of factors which is involved here. It's just not about what has been achieved from the last year, but all the things that their marketing team is also trying, which is important for you also to know so that you can help them out much better, right?
Got it. Yeah, that's a good question. I think accountability, transparency, all that's going to continue to be more and more important. The US market is still not pretty strong as a market in general, especially for businesses, as opposed to some of the weaknesses we're seeing overseas. So US centric businesses are still optimistic and doing well. And I think once the government here starts cutting rates later this year, it'll be even more optimistic. But I think generally speaking, all the stuff we talked about on the chat we're having today is going to be really top of mind for clients this year, more so than before, right? Accountability, attribution analysis, which is what the last couple of questions really pointed to. Attribution analysis, I think, are going to become more important than ever, right? As businesses really dial into how do I scale, how do I generate more profit, less costs, more ROI, those kind of questions. A lot of it comes down to marketing, and then within marketing, it's going to come down to attribution analysis. And I think more so than 5 or 10 years ago, when people would just look into their Google Analytics and that was the truth, right? I think there's so many more things going on, and there's so many different ways to actually attribute the sale, right? And as consumers, we're now interacting with more and more media, right? So I do a lot of stuff on me personally, for my business, it's not as much yet, but I'm an automotive enthusiast, so I do a lot of stuff on the automotive side. I have a book I just wrote, Automotive Search Marketing. So on the automotive side, someone looking for a car has something like 22 touch points with different media, right? And it's going to be with everything: radio, billboard, digital. How do you properly attribute which one of those generate business for you, right? And with third-party data going away, it makes it even more difficult. So I think attribution analysis in itself almost becomes a whole business line, right? And I think for us as marketing agencies or marketing professionals, it becomes more important than ever to be able to say to our clients that you spent X amount on these 8 channels. This is what each one drove, which kind of ROI you got from each, right? And then that allows both us and the client to make educated decisions on how they want to change their marketing mix or how they want to allocate their spend. I think all of that's really going to get pushed to the forefront this year, and I think going forward. I don't think it's a temporary trend. I think generally speaking, that's going to become a core analysis that any business does, because it's very hard now to really advertise in a very small, very, what can I say? It's very hard for a business to just, let's say, Google search or just Facebook, right? I have very, very, very few clients that are just doing one channel to advertise. Even the small, even like the roofers and plumbers are doing like 5 different things, right? Figuring out which one of those is driving results and which way, I think is going to be, along with the cookie deprecation and everything else, I think it's going to be a hot topic this year.
So there's one thing I want to kind of expand on a bit. So for every single one of our clients, every year, we just finished this process most recently, this idea around forecasting, what does the entire year look like? And we break it up into 2 sections. We look back first to say, historically, as long as your business didn't open yesterday, what has our historic data tell us? That's going to look at seasonality, external trends, the product mix that you sold, your customer base, all of your data points. We did that exercise and we look back over the past X number of years to say, what are the peaks and troughs for us? So one of our brands, their Q4 is actually in Q2 and Q3, right? Whereas multiple e-commerce brands, Q4 is where they make up, 30, 40% of their sales. We have a robust process where we say, where have we been? Right? We also look at, and my number one question always is, what is our champagne moment? Where are we going? On December 31st, what does that number look like for us at what profitability level? We get to that with our clients and we say, what does success look like for this year? And then we map out to Alex's point, like, what are all of the different investments in marketing that we're taking and have we taken in our look back window to indicate what January, February, March needs to look like. And then we map that out and we say, based on what we've done before, based on your targets and based on what we have available from partnering with platforms as well as our internal expertise as an opportunity, here's what we need to do for this year. And we've done that with level of success. I'll call it sub 10 to 5% accuracy and variance of predicting where we're going to go and how we got there, whether that is spend from a budget standpoint or revenue or profitability, depending on what the metric is. So we have a robust step-by-step process we take all of our clients through to align on where they want to go, looking back and informed by what they've done in the past, what the platforms have to say, and what the market opportunity is to allow us to say, here's how much we need to spend, right? There's a conservative play, there's an aggressive play, but at the end of the day, we then agree that plan, and then we optimize and iterate step by step as we go. There are a number of things that could happen within our time frame that might change our plan, but we've done that across a number of brands, and we do it on a consistent basis. And historic data really allows us to understand where we're going next. So it's a pretty solid exercise.
Awesome. Since we're on the topic of data, I want to expand into that now. So when you're looking at accounts, right, even we see that one, either they haven't consolidated it pretty good, and if they have consolidated it, they haven't done it the right way, and the infrastructure to do all of this hasn't been really set up in a way. And there's a lot more to this, right? It's about data governance. Are you getting consent from everyone around the table? How is your data moving in from one tool to another one? Right? How are they talking to each other? Everything comes around building this, and this forms a really important piece of the game especially for better measurement moving forward. And we see this as a huge problem, especially it can be even enterprise brands, to be really frank, in their data warehouses, or SMBs on their Excel sheet. So this is a sad state which we have faced. What do you really think do we do to solve this problem, and how should one really take some proactive measures to just clean it up once and for all and maintain it so that you don't have to worry about data being a problem for measurements, but you can rely on that very confidently, because that confidence is is more key than what your measurements is really showing you, because it's so much dependent on anybody can take this up.
I'll give my very first quick 2 cents, and this is similar to the one of the first things I mentioned. So I think this is going to be very geographically specific. I think the U.S. companies are going to have much bigger hurdles here because all the EU companies have had to deal with all the government mandated compliance on data, right? So I think for them it's just going to be one small step after 10 other steps they've taken in the last couple of years. On the US side, I think it's going to be a very heavy lift. I think there's a lot of businesses that are not prepared to put in the investment needed to make sure they're collecting data the correct way, and it's not only complying with laws, but it's, what can I say? I think the big theme with all of this data collection is going to be focusing on explicit consent. I think that's what the industry is now, right? You can no longer just subscribe people and call it first party data, right? You can't like buy email marketing lists from somewhere else and say it's third party data. It's all about explicit consent, and my colleagues on the UK EU side, I think are more used to this, and for the US, I think it's going to be a heavy lift. I think there's going to be whole companies created that specialize on helping businesses with this kind of stuff, as it's been the case in the EU.
And do you feel this will be part of people who are doing measurements as an alternative service, or there's a whole stream of
Oh man,
people...
I think measurement is a very small part of this overall all data, what can we say, data integrity, data compliance issue. I think it's its own thing, and measurement becomes a small part of it. How we as marketers play into it is going to be the question, whether the marketing companies take on the full responsibility on data compliance or not. I think remains to be seen. I think it's an issue that's far greater reaching than just the marketing side of it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think maybe we should all work on some sort of like a playbook or something like that to get people started off. Because
Absolutely.
a lot of people on LinkedIn talk about the problems but really don't present a solution, and I hate that thing about it.
Yes.
What is your say on this, Jeremy? How are you seeing data systems getting played? What's your take on that?
Well, I think first I want to define it, right? So for me, data infrastructure really is the underlying framework for collecting, storing, managing, and analyzing data, right? A robust data infrastructure setup is crucial for first-party data, also enabling personalized customer experience and optimizing performance, right? And I want to kind of talk through how you get it done, to your point, right? Like we're saying it's a problem, but like, what do we do? And I'll keep it as high level as we can. I want to say, to put this into practice, you got to first start by auditing your existing data collection methods, right? This involves evaluating how data is gathered across all digital touchpoints, websites, social media, email campaigns, and also identifying your gaps. And then you'll want to centralize and enhance your data to create a seamless flow, providing a comprehensive customer view, right? Like, you need that. You might implement a customer data platform to amalgamate your data across Shopify, social media platforms, email tools. Like, you need that all in one place, right? From there, with that unified foundation, you'll be able to deploy advanced analytics and AI to really extract those insights. You need that information for personalized marketing and improve your customer experience, right? And then you can establish and monitor the metrics you evaluate and on the impact of your marketing strategies with that infrastructure. You got to figure out how you're doing it, what you have, what the gaps are, and then you can improve your strategies because you have better data. I think those are the high level steps you have to take. And without those, you don't have a shot to really make it happen.
Nicholas?
Yeah, I think I'm just going to touch back on Alex's point about where does this actually belong within, I suppose. Does it belong to marketers, or does it belong to, I suppose, a wider, I'm going to call it the digital team, whether that's in-house or completely new company that owns that. We actually run this stuff in-house from an agency side. So we have an entire solutions team that work across paid media and also organic, where we look at things like data hygiene. So how data is collected. So we call it data hygiene, how data is collected, how we store that data, how compliant it is there anything that needs setting up, what needs auditing. The rest of it, essentially down from GTM, strip it back and have a look all the way up to where you store it. We actually use BigQuery. We're one of those people. make it the easiest bit. But yeah, the idea is I think it should be owned by marketers as such. I think where the people that are interacting with that data probably more than most people outside of, I suppose, like BI platforms or intelligence platforms. But ultimately, I think one of those two should be on it. Sorry, I felt that was a more salient point to chat about over the other stuff we've just mentioned. So I feel like these guys have nailed it.
Yeah, I mean, I think we also took this really conscious effort to building the customer data layer of the first layer and then everything built on top, because we realized that people have their data all over the place. That siloed part of it, yeah, it happens. It's very natural for that to happen, but nobody has taken the proactive measures to understand it or unify it. And that was something that we felt, oh my God, you're gonna break down. This is gonna have a lot of effects on the business in so many other levels, right? And yeah, I think US folks are lagging behind. So on that note, Anne has a question here. Uh, uh, have US companies been threatened with account closures if they do not implement cookie consent mode by March, or this is just an EU issue? Alex, do you want to take that?
Our clients have not. There's been no legal implications from all the EU past laws. I think eventually, well, EU plus UK. I think native. It's weird that I have to separate those two out now, but I'll separate it out. EU and plus UK. I think it's naturally more privacy focused over there. Will the US ever be brought up to that same level? Probably not. But there's no penalties and no real enforcement of privacy stuff within the US.
Okay.
Outside a few small
Awesome.
things. And I think because of that, this is going to be a much bigger issue for US companies, especially once third-party data is gone and once there begin some kind of enforcement on again what I call explicit consent.
Okay, thanks for that. And hope you got that question resolved. I think Amy has a question she has two questions, so I'll put it in this way. With third-party cookies going on, a lot of people will look at unified ID tools where primarily somebody is dropping their own cookies to track however they want, primarily attribute all of the customer data a bit more better compared to others, and then pretty much giving that over to people. What are your guys' take on this? Have you guys implemented any sort of unified ID based stuff within your clients? And with lots of third-party cookies, how are you really addressing the problem with understanding the signals a lot more better? So I think she just wanted to get that understanding from the question. Who wants to take? Jeremy, Nicholas?
I think on my end, I haven't heard a great deal about applying unified IDs at the moment. It's been more of an understanding of our current setup, what could be the implications, where could we be impacted in an observation mode. I think that is a proactive move that some may take, but it's a great question. You have to keep an eye out for who's innovating in that way to see if that's moving the needle for them, going back to the bottom line. But great question.
Okay,
Yeah, and
cool.
I think just to add to that really quick, I think that's the area where a lot of innovation will be coming, right? So there was a couple things mentioned in that question. There were touching upon a couple different areas, right? I think for sure unifying data is going to be a big thing, and I'm sure some company will emerge, and I'm sure Google wants to be in that space as well, and they have their own platforms and things they're trying to do, and GA4 is trying to grab some of that. So for sure, I think there's a lot of innovation and a lot of change that will happen in that industry right now. I don't think there's much. Right now, I don't know of any good solution that will unify all your data in that way. Number one. Number two, there was a little bit touched upon in general using your own data and using your own first-party data. I think that is also a space that where we'll see a lot of innovation. So as you lose third-party data, you now are forced to really rely on your first-party data, not only collecting it and saying I have my own first-party data, but actually using it, right? So instead of before where we'd use third-party cookies to indicate intent of the consumer and to customize ads to that, we'd get a lot of data from third-party cookies, right? There's a lot of stuff that would come from there, and the idea of using that is to personalize experiences, at least on the marketing side, right? We would serve specific ads to specific people in specific ways based on their purchase journey, right? That's where it works. With that kind of becoming a lot more challenging now, you really have to lean into your first-party data, and then you need some kind of analysis that happens of it, and this will all be AI and machine learning, and this is not, you won't have like an intern sitting in the back of your office trying to analyze the first-party data and then using it, right? It's all going to become AI machine learning, but I think that's where the innovation happens, where using your first-party data to actually now personalize ads and experiences based on your own first-party data, and you're doing the analysis and personalization yourself through AI and machine learning. I think that's the next frontier here, and I think it'll happen very quickly once third-party data, which by the way a lot of companies are still reliant on, once that abruptly goes away, I think that's when the innovation happens.
It's going to take some time because we've already built this out thinking in mind, right? So
yeah,
I mean, our AI engineers and everyone got behind the table pretty much 6 months ago, tried to deep dive on how people are doing MMM. We built that out. We connected like huge revenue numbers and ad dollars in, and really now it's so easy, to be really frank, to visualize our own platform, using it out for our people, because what we're trying to do is we're just sending them signals, right? Like how, okay, let's say for example, you ran a campaign and you pretty much got some sales, and then after that you spent more, thinking that you're gonna get more, but in the end, something happened in the middle, and then you wake up in the morning and everything is gone, right? So that won't happen moving forward. We're analyzing this every second, nanosecond possible. And yeah, I think with technologies available, a lot of people are going to come build this out, but it's going to be a huge investment, definitely, right? For you as a brand, it's not going to come easy, but you got to understand. I mean, only if you're a bigger brand dealing with that kind of numbers, this is not going to be something which SMBs will really look for if they don't have that much amount of data to deal with. But definitely, growing companies and enterprises definitely are going towards this. So coming to AI and ML, guys, so this has also been a hot topic along with whatever we've been doing, for our clients. And we saw last year pretty much AI dealing with a lot of top level problems for us, right? For example, hey, we want to build a website copy, we want to write an ad copy, we want to generate all of that stuff was cool. We understood that was more of a top level problem that we as advertisers have. But if you really get to the math side of the table, right, we understood that there's more integration of ML and AI needed in there as well, and that has been something which that has been something big players have been giving us. To be really frank, like Meta literally has been doing this for years, and Amazon has been doing this and all that. But now it's getting democratized. It's getting in the hands of it's getting in the hands of everyone here. So how are you seeing really AI playing it in the deep corners of us doing media buying, or understanding the relationship between customers and all that? So I mean, I am sure every one of you have some suggestions and ideas on predictions on this. So Nicholas, let's start with you.
So I think like we're seeing AI, let's be honest, it's been sort of like it's come in over the past couple of years massively. Fuck it, even how we buy media on platforms and bid. I don't think I started in media 9 years ago now, and I used to place manual CPC bids. And if you do that now, I feel like you're massively behind the curve in most cases. But I feel that it's just going to continue the same way. I think the way that we're looking at it is more, I think we've looked at AI-based prediction. Look at GA4, where it is essentially filling in the gaps in the sandbox that's been brought out now, which I'm not particularly keen on, to be honest. But ultimately, it is starting to use AI and filling gaps that we may have missing, I suppose, information from which we used to have from third-party cookies, or cookies that we can no longer collect and no longer have those data points. So I think we are going to continue seeing I suppose I won't say the rise of AI, but it's going to become a lot more commonplace. I think I don't know, I've spoken about it a lot, and I feel that the easiest way to put it is just like, just expect it to be there now. Like, I'm not going to try labor this point. We see it in bidding, we see it in predicting and budgeting, and we see it in platform as well. I think it's now the next step is like, do we have any form of AI? Like, is it Fopshare, there's Trip Whale, some of the smaller, I suppose, AI driven, I suppose, measurement platforms. But their strategy is it start filling the blanks. But I've always found it never matches up with source data. So when you're actually looking at conversions within an ads account versus what's actually in the back end of the sorry, it is like it's 1:15 in the morning. I'm trying to get my thoughts out in a cohesive way. It never matches the back end data and the revenue actually in the client's, I suppose, accounts more so than anything. So I feel like we are still yet to fill in that gap and feed it better information. Back down to data hygiene again. Now I'll pass over to one of these guys. So I feel that I've learned that a bit too much.
Awesome.
Good. I think for us, it's about triangulation, right? Like, I think everybody who is tapped in and really leaned into the problems and opportunities of what our industry provides is trying to leverage AI to give better signal, to provide more predictable outcomes. So as we sit from the operator standpoint, we're saying, what does Triple Whale offer? What do these solutions offer? How do we leverage data, whether that's leveraging the data that we have internally to say, here's the performance against all of the different variables we're testing, to say, what should our next test be, to add copy, to generating creative, on out to what do our third-party solutions and the platforms offer, whether that's smart bidding, things of that nature. We need to be able to kind of take all the insights and all of the work that everybody's doing, leveraging AI to triangulate the next best solution, right? So it might be bridging the gap in terms of the signal that a platform has around profitability and conversion value. It might be looking at the historic data that we have now to say, over the next 12 months, what revenue should I be looking towards, looking at based off the last 24 months, and kind of putting that all together. I think the thing that AI allows us to do is think faster, think more three-dimensionally, and where I can sit here and calculate what those things look like, I can actually do that 10 times faster, because I'm thinking about it not from a place of, is this an adverse thing that will make me slower, but from a, how can this accelerate my thinking? If I input all this data in and all these different variables, we start to have a conversation personally with AI to say, what could the next outcome be? And those start to develop our hypotheses as inputs. And then obviously all of the platforms are leveraging AI to make smarter decisions as well. So I think it's going to happen, but it's going to come from multiple places. And what we have to do is sit at the intersection of AI innovation. What can it tell us? How does it make us faster? And how does it make us smarter is the thing I'm excited about, to be honest.
Awesome. Alex, what's your take?
Yeah, all very good points. I think that yes, AI machine learning, I think, will make us. I think we're just at the beginning stages of what it could really do, right? When people used to ask me what machine learning in AI was, and this was a couple of years ago, not too long ago, but before this whole explosion in the industry, right? My best example was mentioned a little earlier, the manual bidding, right? So with Google Ads, 5 years ago, I would say more than half the people were bidding manually, right? And Google's implementation of machine learning allowed what they call auction time bidding. So what really happened was, before, you would bid manually and you would review the data monthly, quarterly, whatever it was, and you would say, it looks like this time of day, I get better conversion rates, so I'm going to bid higher that time of day. Or males convert better, I'm going to bid higher on males. And it was always backward-looking data. So you'd make decisions based on data in the past, sometimes like 12 months in the past, and hope that still applies to the future, right? So even if you were the best manual bid optimizer in the world and you even did it on a daily basis, that was the best you could get, right? With machine learning, what Google implemented is auction time bidding. So when someone searches something on Google, before the ad shows, before the ad is even displayed, Google has these signals of that consumer, and they know right now, before the ad serves, whether that consumer is more likely to convert, but whether they're more likely to perform this kind of conversion action. They have all this information, and on the fly, it allows them to bid higher, knowing that consumer is more likely to convert, right? So that kind of huge change from manual bidding, looking at data in the past, not only are we now faster, smarter, better, more efficient, but we're actually making decisions on the fly where just manually we could never do. So I think that's where we're going with this AI, machine learning, importing your data into it. The idea is not even, sure, you'll be more efficient and sure you'll be more effective and get more value out of it. But I think the big thing is that you could use data and make decisions on the fly automatically. It's not someone there doing like gut feel, like, I feel like my business does a lot better 4 to 5 p.m. I'm going to bid higher then, right? It all becomes data-based decisions, and it all becomes instant data-based decisions. It's not based on old data. So that's all very exciting to me, and I think we're only starting to touch upon that outside of Google Ads. It has been doing a lot of this stuff for a while, obviously, but outside of Google Ads, I think marketers are just starting this road down all this really cool things that are coming.
Yeah, I mean, totally agree to you guys, because we have been dwelling on this concept and well as causal inference. It's again a very important part. Just simply put, for everyone here, when you're running marketing campaigns, you're achieving different set of outcomes. Let's say, for example, outcomes can be so many. It can be revenue, it can be demos, it can be whatever KPI you're trying to measure. And then all you're trying to figure out is the cause of that. And the cause of that can be many things, right? It can be channels, it can be campaign, it can be a set of customers, it can be the right amount of CAC, the right amount of ROAS that you wanted to achieve, and you would want to play around with all the causes much more clearly. It's primarily how Google Analytics have been really showing that graph for us of journeys, and this is something that we'll see getting into an AI interface where we will primarily get all of that data flowing in, because we have all that in real time coming in. The causal AI, right, will be strong enough for you to really map out all those cause and outcome scenarios, and we're seeing this as a next thing after this whole triangulation of MMM, IT, and MTA gets sorted out. We will see a move into a triangulation of causal, because that will become a much more important game maybe 2 years from now, right? So with that, thank you so much for guys for coming in. There's one last thing I think we will end this with. When it comes to the confidence score of media mixes, especially with the brand looked at, what are some of the parameters that do you think should build out this confidence score when it comes to investment? So let's just answer that, and we'll end the event. Nicholas, let's start with you.
So from this point of view, I'm actually going to have to bow out of this one. It's not necessarily my background, it's our solutions team. So I would probably be doing them a massive disservice if I tried to answer this one. So I'll pass over to our other panelists.
Okay, so from our perspective, I'm always going to sound like a broken record. It starts with the bank account, right? So how much money did we make? And then you start to stack rank and identify what all your marketing activities are, right? From there, we get into kind of marketing mix modeling where we say, and we try to quantify what is the impact of all of our different strategies. We get into a bit of incrementality, right? So for example, you say, I've got 100 purchases and my CPA is $10, right? Well, a certain percentage of those purchases would have happened anyway. So your incremental CPA will be higher. You start to assign scores to each of your marketing tactics, and then you get this holistic view of your media mix. From there, you can start to say, today, based off historic data, this is what all of my activities are doing for my business. And then you get to experiment. And I'll round it right back to your question. Based off going through that exercise, with which 100% of brands have it at present, depending on where they are. So it's a very important thing to do. You want to understand where you think the impact is, and you want to start to change your budget allocation to see if you're right. Because the number one question we want to answer is, well, a couple, A, what is the impact? B, can we repeat it, right? That's the point of all of it, right? If we're successful, can we double down, right? So when it comes to the confidence score, you first have to understand what you achieved from a revenue and a profitability standpoint, what your tactics were, assign values against those, and say, here's what we think, right? And as you experiment, that should build the confidence in terms of my allocation of media needs to be 70% Google and 30% Meta, or whatever your mix is, with some direct mail in there as well, just for kicks. But your score and your confidence needs to be based off of understanding where you are, how you've measured it, assigning a value, and stress testing against that. If you have that framework in play, you can repeat that quarter over quarter, year over year to scale with confidence.
Awesome. I love that already. Alex, anything to add?
No, I agree with what Jeremy was saying. I think generally speaking, I love to see more standardization and more of what Jeremy was saying in the space in general. So I think right now, in terms of that kind of analysis, we're very, very early in what we're able to do. There's definitely ways to back into it, like he was just explaining, but there's no like clear cut path or best practices, right? Every company's kind of backing into it and estimating and forecasting differently. I think that's also a space we see a lot of innovation in. I think the world of attribution analysis and really knowing exactly your ROI per marketing channel. And as you have consumers who make touch points with every marketing channel, right? Hopefully you're not using last click attribution for all of that. I think seeing more standardization and more best practices and more tools come out there to help businesses with this is what I'm excited about. And we're certainly not there. Every company I know who does this kind of stuff, who tries to figure this out for their clients, just like we do, is kind of engineering it themselves. So I think we're going in the right direction, and I like that there's continued interest, and I think there'll be more interest than ever to being able to really figure out the ROI of each dollar spent in every different media that you advertise in.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. This has been a great start, I think, for us and for the community as well. So I just want to end the night to say that, folks, a bit of recap here, right, from this event. Get your data in the right place, in the right way. Make sure that is the first thing that you get sorted out before. I think ASAP, right? Like right now, go to whoever is your guy doing this, or if there's no system, hit us up or hit any one of us. Will help you out. Second, it's important to not get attached to one set of attribution, or one set of methodology, because that's not going to be a normal thing moving forward, because you're going to see a lot of movement around data. You're going to see a lot of signals being lost along the way, and sometimes you gotta wait differently. You gotta look at from a very different lens, and it all comes down to that effect on the revenue, to be really frank, right? That you must really focus on. The effect on profit after that comes about along. So it's important for you as marketers, think like CFOs, finance guys, because you're already doing that when you're bidding or when you're trying to project the ROI. but in the end, you're still not really looking at business revenues and business outcomes. And it's important for you to take a shift towards that. And we're all here to primarily help you take that shift. Three, triangulation is going to be a really important game. Whatever triangulation works for you, it just so differs according to what you're doing at different points of your growth journey. So it's important to understand the triangulation of measurements, which is going to be a really important thing moving forward. Two, make sure that uh, you're not putting all of your efforts just trying to get more people to analyze your data, but understand whether you need a tool to primarily help you make these decisions efficient and faster so that eventually you as marketers can do your thing, right? Go and create those amazing campaigns, go and work on your creative, understand your customers well, change your positioning and all of that. So it's more important to do that, but a lot of the times we end up on this side of the table, and it's important to take that move as well. Two, if you guys had anybody from US, folks, move ahead faster until the storm hits you, because the storm is already coming. While we're all here to enable you, it's important for you to proactively take these steps within your organization and then reach out for help. So yeah, I just want to end on that note, and I think hopefully you'll take all of this what you have learned. Please don't keep this to yourself. Go and share it within the community out there. Go post wherever you want. Tag us so that we'll share the spread around. Yes, for those of you who wanted a recording, you will be getting all the information post the event. All the transcripts, everything's gonna come out, so don't worry about that. I would more be really, grateful again for you to go and share what you've learned here today, because it shouldn't be restricted to just within the small room. There's a lot of people who are unaware about this, and it's important for you to do that. And meanwhile, thank you so much, Nicholas, Alex, Jeremy, for your time. It's been a good one. Yeah, more to go.